Okay, let's create another query. In the last lecture, we created a query that brought back employees listed by city. In this one, let's do a query that just brings back the employees in Los Angeles. Okay, so again, we'll go to Create, and we'll go to Query Design, and we're going to be using both of our tables. So again, we can either double click on these, or you can click one and then hover over the other one and press Shift and select it as well. That will select both of them, and you can do that with an entire long list too. Just click the first one, and then go down to the bottom one and hold Shift and click it. And then we'll click Add and Close. And you can move these around, and you can move this around if you can grab it. You can bring this up if you want, just to make it easier to use. And speaking of resizing the window, you can move these too. If you need more space there, you can minimize that if you need more space there. It's all very customizable. And another important thing to note is that if you've already selected your tables from the original pop-up and you want to grab additional tables, you can go to this button right here in the ribbon, click that, and it'll bring you this pop-up again so you can select tables. And notice you can also select tables, or if we want to actually create queries based on other queries, we can do that as well. Okay? When we're done with that, we just close it out. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of additional little cool tricks with this one. We're going to set it up basically the same as we did for our employees by city query. We're going to put our first name in there, last name, phone number, and their city. But now we're going to get into a little more detail with this, and I'm going to explain a lot of these things as we go as well. So this first row is your field name, obviously. So you see we've got first name, last name, phone, city. But you also notice there's a drop down here that allows you to change that if you want. Okay? And if you click into the field, you'll see that the drop down appears. Okay, and the next row down is your table. So this is which table you're drawing from. So you can see the first name field, the last name field, and the phone field are all in the employees table, whereas the city field is coming from the offices table. And again, when you're selected in here, you have a drop down and you can select a different one if you want. Of course, if we want to change this to offices, obviously we'd have to change that as well, right? Okay, we already looked at the sort row in our previous example where we sorted the cities alphabetically, so ascending or descending. This next row is called the show, and it's just a toggle button, so you either have it on or off. And if you have it checked, like these all are, and that means that when we run our query or switch over to datasheet view to display the results of our query, that anything here that is checked is going to show up. Now if we uncheck this, which we're actually going to do for the city, then this one will still be relevant to our query, but it's not going to show up in our query results. So that's a really cool thing, and I'll show you how that works and how you can use it in just a minute. Then we have our criteria, and criteria is basically your rules for the question that you're asking. So in this particular example, we're looking for all of the employees that live in the city of Los Angeles. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to the criteria, and we're going to type in Los Angeles. And you can do lowercase or uppercase, it doesn't matter. And when we hit enter, notice how it put it into quotes. The reason it does that is because Access recognizes that this is a string of text. And so by putting it into quotes, it is identifying it as text. If we were using numbers, then there wouldn't be quotes around it. Okay, so what we have here is in our query, we're searching for first name, last name, phone number, and then it's going to our offices table and searching for city, and we're asking it to show anything that matches Los Angeles in the city. So let's go ahead and run this and see how it looks. Okay, so here are the results. It brought back 4 people, and it shows their first name, last name, and phone number. And remember, we checked the show box to hide the city field, which would otherwise be showing up right here. But since this query is going to be named employees in Los Angeles, then we already know that these employees work in Los Angeles, so we don't really need to have it displayed over here because that basically is redundant. And while we're in the datasheet view, we can resize these if we like, just to make things fit better. You can also hover over these and double click, and it'll size it to fit. So in other words, if this one is really wide like this, and I go up here, hover over it and double click, it'll drop it to fit the largest thing that's in that cell. We can do the same thing here and see it expanded it so that that first name field fit correctly. Okay, let's go back to our design view and we're going to alphabetize the names. So we'll go to our sort and we'll just go ascending. Now just so I can show you a couple of other tricks and tips, let's say that we had originally added in the state field, but then later we decided that we didn't want it. To get rid of this, all you do is click on the top here on the little gray bar, highlight it, and click delete. And by the way, you're not able to use Control-Z in design view here. So for instance, if you wanted to bring that back, you click Control-Z, nothing happens. So you'd actually have to go and redo that, click on the state again and bring it in. That's something to keep in mind if you're used to using like Excel or Word, or even in your table view, you can do Control-Z to undo things. The only time that you can use it is if you're typing something in here and you deleted that, like highlighted it, deleted it, then you can hit Control-Z and it'll bring your text back when you're selected within a cell. Okay? We've looked at field, table, sort, show, criteria. Real quick, let's look at OR. OR is basically just an additional criteria that you want to use as well. So we could say that we want the query to bring back all the results from Los Angeles or Denver. And we could just type in Denver. And then when we run that, you'll see now it's bringing back twice as many results because it's bringing back the Denver people as well. Okay, but we don't want to do that. We're just doing Los Angeles employees for this query. So we're going to go ahead and go to the data sheet and make sure everything looks good. And you can see now our last names are alphabetized. And then we're going to save it. And we're going to call it query employees Los Angeles. And then you see now it pops up into our queries objects. So that's our employees in Los Angeles query. In the next video, we'll look at some more specific examples of how to set up criteria, because that's where some of the power of queries comes in.